One copper wire triples your harvest. Why this forbidden garden science won't go away. Welcome back to Soil Stories, where we dig past garden myths, lost wisdom, and real soil science to grow better food. If you've spent any time in old gardening forums, rural farming stories, or whispered conversations between seasoned growers, you've probably heard it. Just put a copper wire in the soil. Some claim it boosts yields. Others say plants grow stronger, greener, and more resilient. A few even insist it can triple a harvest. Then comes the warning tone. They don't want you to know this. So, is this forbidden science or misunderstood soil biology? Today, we're cutting through the hype without killing the curiosity, because beneath all the exaggeration lies something gardeners should absolutely understand, especially if you care about soil health, plant nutrition, and sustainable yields. The old garden trick that refuses to die. Long before synthetic fertilizers, gardeners relied on observation, experimentation, and intuition. Copper shows up again and again in old farming practices, from copper tools and vessels to copper strips buried near crops. These weren't random habits. Farmers noticed patterns. Plants near copper sometimes looked healthier, fungal diseases seemed reduced, growth appeared more balanced. Over time, the idea that copper activates the soil took root. These days, modern gardening often dismisses this as just old folklore, but copper is still quietly used today, just in ways most home gardeners never really see. Copper is not magic, but it is essential. Here's where things get interesting. Copper is not optional for plants. It's actually an essential micronutrient, which means plants need it in very small amounts to survive and thrive. Copper plays a role in enzyme activation, photosynthesis, seed production, and overall plant metabolism. Without enough copper, plants can become weak, pale, and unproductive, but too much copper, however, is toxic. That fine line is why copper doesn't get the same attention as nitrogen or potassium. It's powerful, but it must be respected. When gardeners bury a copper wire, they aren't feeding plants copper like fertilizer. What they may be doing is slowly influencing the soil ecosystem in subtle ways. Soil is alive, and copper interacts with it. One of the most overlooked truths in gardening is that plants don't grow in soil, they grow in relationships. Roots, fungi, bacteria, minerals, moisture, and electrical charges all interact underground. Copper has natural antimicrobial properties. In tiny concentrations, it can suppress harmful fungi and bacteria without sterilizing the soil. This is why copper-based fungicides exist and, why copper roofs resist moss. When copper wire is placed in soil, microscopic amounts of copper ions can leach over time, especially in moist conditions. This may slightly reduce soil pathogens around the root zone, giving plants a cleaner environment to grow. Healthier roots often mean better nutrient uptake, stronger growth, and higher yields, not because copper feeds the plant directly, but because it supports the underground balance. The electroculture connection few talk about, and, this is where the topic starts sounding kind of forbidden. Some gardeners believe copper wire works because it interacts with natural atmospheric electricity. This idea actually comes from electroculture, a farming practice dating back over 100 years. Early experiments suggested that plants responded positively to weak electrical currents in soil and air. Copper is an excellent conductor. When placed vertically or horizontally in soil, it may help conduct tiny electrical charges generated by temperature changes, moisture movement, or atmospheric conditions. So, is this fully proven by modern science? Well, no, but is it completely dismissed? Also no. What is proven is that plants respond to electrical signals internally, and soil, it actually has measurable electrical activity. The idea that copper wire could subtly influence this system isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. It's just, honestly, under-researched. Why won't you hear this from big agriculture? Well, this is where myths really start to grow teeth. Large-scale agriculture relies on standardized, measurable inputs, fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation systems. A thin copper wire producing inconsistent results just doesn't fit neatly into those profit-driven models. There's no patent on burying copper wire, no product line, no guaranteed outcome. That doesn't mean it's forbidden, it just means it's uncommercial. Science often ignores what can't be easily monetized or, replicated at scale. Home gardeners, however, live in the world of small experiments and personal observation. That's why these ideas survive in gardens, not laboratories. So, what copper wire can and cannot do in your garden. Let's be clear and responsible here. A single copper wire will not magically triple your harvest on its own. Anyone promising that is, honestly, overselling the idea. What it can do, when conditions are right, is contribute to healthier soil dynamics. Gardeners who report success usually combine copper wire with rich organic matter, living soil, proper watering, and diverse planting. Copper becomes one small factor in a larger system working well. If your soil is depleted, compacted, or lifeless, copper won't save it. But if your soil is already alive, balanced, and biologically active, copper may enhance what's already happening. How gardeners experiment safely. If you're curious, experiment thoughtfully. Use pure copper wire, not coated or treated metal. Insert it near the root zone, not wrapped tightly around stems. One small piece per plant or bed is more than enough. Observe over a full season, not just a week. So, just watch plant color growth rate, disease resistance, and yield compared to untreated areas. And, keep notes. Soil Stories is really about learning from the land, not chasing shortcuts. Never add copper repeatedly or in large amounts. Copper accumulates in soil, and excess can harm beneficial microbes and plants alike. Less is always more with micronutrients. So, the real lesson hidden in this so-called forbidden trick might just surprise you. The copper wire debate isn't really about copper. It's about remembering that soil health is complex, living, and deeply interconnected. It's about questioning those one-size-fits-all solutions and, honestly, rediscovering the value of small-scale wisdom. And maybe most importantly, it's about gardeners taking curiosity back into their own hands. Whether copper wire works for you or not, the mindset it encourages, observation, patience, respect for soil life, is what truly increases harvests over time. Healthy soil always outperforms clever tricks. Final thoughts from Soil Stories. So is this science forbidden? Not exactly, it's just inconvenient, subtle, and hard to sell. Copper wire isn't a miracle, it's a reminder that ancient practices often carried insight, that modern science doesn't know everything yet, and that your garden is the best laboratory you'll ever have. If this kind of grounded, curious gardening speaks to you, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Soil Stories for more deep dives into forgotten techniques, real soil science, and practical wisdom that helps you grow better food, season after season. Share this with a fellow gardener who loves experimenting, and let's keep these conversations alive in the soil where they belong.